There are some musicians that you look up to as examples, like they represent a whole genre and in many cases they are pure inspiration. You consider these artists a sort of blueprint, and to me Brad Paisley is one of them. They can seem far away or from another planet, but when you feel that their music resonates within you, something special happens. And when you're a player, or a wannabe player in my case, in love with the instrument, and you find someone who shares his love for the guitar and though famous talks to you like a friend, then you never stop listening to him. Diary of a Player is just this. It's not exactly an autobiography, it's really more like a diary, a journal of a great artist that wants to share his life and passion. Hi all, this is Luca speaking, and this is an episode of the book series where I share with you books that inspired me about musicians, artists and music in general, since I'd like more and more people being inspired by them. As usual, if you find the video interesting, please consider subscribing to the channel, liking this video and tell me what you think in the comments, switching on the notification bell. Why this book? Well, sometimes some names have a place in your mind, you hear about them, they cross your path several times in your life, but you don't have a chance to know more. Brad Paisley is, or better was, one of these names for me. I knew him from the Cars movie soundtrack and from my, guitar interest, and I had an image of a cowboy hat and a Telecaster, and I associated him to the Paisley pattern that I love on guitars, bandanas, shirts. I recently wanted to know more about country music. Last year I started by listening to playlists on new iTunes, and then I passed to early Taylor Swift albums, and from there to other country artists suggested by the platform. Living in Europe, country is a kind of music that is not so common, since it's almost impossible to hear it on the radio, and I then recalled that name I crossed so many times but didn't know much about. I don't remember what playlist I put on, but I was captured right away. I really enjoyed the music and I loved the guitar playing. Man, I thought this is great, his playing style is so accurate and soulful. I mean, it seems he can do anything with a guitar. And I thought, I don't know why, but his singing tells me he's a very genuine person. I'd like to know more about him. Or maybe it's about the genre, but anyway, I searched online and I found Diary of a Player. So this book right here. And let me start by saying that I really recommend this book to anyone who's interested in seeing how true passion can make you accomplish great goals. Not necessarily from a musical perspective, this book shows how talent and passion can evolve from childhood and how the child part of us has always a great value. And even if you don't know Brad and you don't plan to listen to his work, though I strongly recommend it, I think his point of view is very valuable in reminding us, of the emotion and wishes we live with. How our feelings as kids shape our character. And for the parents out there, if we encourage and support children in finding their passions and then feeding them, we do an immense service. I then tell something to all the guitar players: if you want to read about someone like you, with the same passion that you have about music and gear, then go pick this book up. And by the way, I've read online some for players only associated to this book. I strongly disagree. It's a genuine, inspiring and funny reading for anyone. Okay, so this is the book, and I've read this book in English, 2012 paperback edition, and from the printing point of view, I enjoyed this book as it is extremely clear and easy to read. It is structured in 9 chapters that describe different phases of Brad's life, despite the warning in the very first line stating that the book is not an autobiography. But every chapter is named after one song, with a verse introducing it. And in every chapter you also find some text highlighted in dedicated boxes, a solo box with quotes from other people and artists, and at the end of each chapter, one of the guitar tips from Brad. So it looks more like a for dummies rather than an autobiography, and it helps us setting up the tone. This and music is supposed to be fun, and Brad is, in my opinion, a funny, sensitive and smart guy. I don't want to report the details of Brad's life, as this is the purpose of the book, but I'd like to share a few highlights. Well, first of all, his relationship with his grandfather, or grandpa. His mother's dad had worked as a telegrapher, and he was passionate about music, like us, especially country and bluegrass. Passion translated into his playing guitar for hours and hours, initially during pauses in his work as a telegrapher, and then to pass time after he retired. He played just for the pleasure of playing. He didn't seek recognition. Playing guitar for him was what made him feel okay. So Grandpa gave Brad a guitar as a Christmas present when he was 8 years old. He wanted his nephew to have that special thing that is playing music. He didn't want him to necessarily become a superstar or to become the popular guy at school. He wanted him to appreciate music, appreciate the art of playing, because he knew it can not only be a source of fun, but also a huge support during hard times. Brad has demonstrated to be a natural, of course, but I think that this imprinting played a big role. As a young kid, growing up in Glendale, West Virginia, Brad had of course other things in mind, not only the guitar. During one summer, for example, he didn't play much guitar, preferring to play outside, and this created some tension with Grandpa, who really wanted Brad to develop on the instrument. They obviously made peace, and Brad's journey continued, so much so that Grandpa soon recognized that the kid was better than him and needed a more advanced teacher. And here Hank Goddard comes into play. Hank was an unsung musical hero, like many were and are out there. Great players, extremely talented musicians that for one reason or the other have just a local impact, but their influence is immense for the lives they touch. Hank was a local hero, a well-known guitarist that was an idol both for Grandpa and for Brad. Hank recognized Brad's talent and not only became his teacher, they became fast friends. Lessons soon became full afternoons and evenings. Brad's dad had to convince him to get home for dinner and homework, and Hank's wife had to do the same. When Brad was asked to play at a picnic, Hank offered to back him up with a band, so the C Notes were born. A band of men in their 50s and a 13-year-old kid. This way, Brad started playing with a band of seasoned professionals that involved him as a peer, because Hank taught by example. He was always kind and always let Brad have his solo moments. So Brad learned on the job, doing the job the right way, and he recognizes the huge impact Hank had on him, as well as Grandpa before him. This whole book is a statement to recognize the impact that great musicians had on him, starting from his first two teachers, and the caption of the book in fact reads, "How my musical heroes made a guitar man out of me." And true to this statement, Brad shows so much respect and recognition to the artists that carried the torch of music before him, as well as his peers nowadays. But also Brad's parents had an important role in his development, as we read in the book. They had to act in order for their kid to do both what a kid is supposed to do, going to school, doing his homework, and what their kid wanted to do and accomplish. So they brought him to concerts where he had to play, and Brad's father became a sort of roadie for his teen son. They reminded him to do his homework, and they supported him in his musical journey, and they allowed him as a teen to purchase some Vox AC30s amplifiers directly from the UK, and the story that I don't want to spoil is in the book. Let me just say that for us guitarists, This episode of just a couple of pages is almost worth the whole book, since it's so funny and we can all relate to it. One aspect that is common thread through the whole book, apart the love for music, is gratefulness. And Brad is and has always been extremely grateful, and this teaches us something. Having the right attitude towards life includes gratefulness for everything that we have, for every event we live in our life, because even if it could be labeled as bad, it can hide a higher meaning. And for him, the core of his musical journey has always been the music itself and being part of it. He didn't plan to become a star, it simply happened. It happened through dedication, respect, passion, hard work, and love. Brad initially enrolled to West Liberty State College in Wheeling, West Virginia, but since he wanted to make it in the music business, he moved to Belmont University in Nashville, and that proved to be the perfect choice. The experience he did there, the people he met, and the networking he was able to do, they have all been instrumental to the building of his career as an artist. Belmont University wasn't a pleasure cruise. During his first semester, Brad got a D in guitar. That's right, he was pursuing several gigs, internships, and other opportunities, and he thought that he could already play guitar, so he skipped classes. But as the teacher explained, grade was not about him being able or not to play. The grade was about him doing what he was supposed to do. As students and as adults, we all have a job to do, and we must do it no matter what. No cutting corners, no excuses. He learned it the hard way, but that grade, that by working hard was later raised to B, served the purpose and provided him new tools. And another aspect that I really enjoyed is his way to describe his emotions. In the book, he explains the well-known story about how he broke up with his then girlfriend and how Father of the Bride was their movie. So after the breakup, he then went to see Father of the Bride Part 2 alone, and after some time, he felt that the woman in the movie, the actress, might be his soulmate. He managed to contact her to appear in one of these videos, and guess what? They are married since almost 20 years. From the book, we also learn about his strength and commitment to get up on his feet. When the 2010 flood in Nashville happened, some people died, many people lost everything, and the flood brought all his guitars away but one and destroyed all the equipment of the tour that was about to start. And Brad and his team committed to the music. They didn't complain and they didn't have any doubt. They supported one another, they worked as hard as possible to start the tour on schedule. And he also played a role in exposing to the public what had happened to so many people, and he supported the return of the Nashville scene. There is also one other story in the book that I find beautiful, and it's the story of a 1938 Martin guitar, an Herringbone D28. After the flood, Brad started visiting stores to find new guitars, and he found a store that had not one or two but a handful of these beautiful, rare guitars. So he strummed some of them until he came to the one that he felt his own. The one that when you touch it and play it, then the angels start to sing. The fascinating part of the story is that while this guitar came from San Diego, it actually belonged to a family from West Virginia. The woman who owned this guitar said that her father was the original owner. Her dad received it from his father in 1938. He then enlisted during World War II and traveled around the world with his guitar. After the war, they relocated to San Diego. The grandfather had the money to purchase such a great guitar because he had a good job during the Big Depression. He was a telegrapher, just like Brad's grandfather, but not only, he was a telegrapher one station down the line from Brad's grandfather. So it could well be they had spent time chatting about music and guitars during their shifts. And in the book you can read more about it, but I think that it's a great example of how we are surrounded by signs. Things happen for a reason, there are no coincidences, and we should be prepared and ready to recognize signs. I've read about Jimmy Page, who as a kid found a guitar when relocating with his family to a new house and began playing with it. There's plenty of content in this book. As I've already said, I really enjoyed reading it a couple of times, and I'm happy because it was my entry point to Brad Paisley the artist. It allowed me to discover some very inspiring music that I've been listening since. I hope you will enjoy it too. I hope you also enjoyed this video and found it interesting. If so, remember to give a like to it and consider subscribing to the channel for more content like this. This is Luca on Music Fingerprints, hoping to see you for the next video.